We're joined by Sandra Wilson, who's the creator of the Kindness Kangaroo project, to talk about the power of storytelling within the environmental movement for kids. So to start off, can you provide us with a brief overview of what the Kindness Kangaroo project is and how it started?
So the Kindness Kangaroo project, part of that is me visiting classrooms, and I work with kids to make books. So I go in for a brainstorming session, they give me ideas, I write the stories, send it back to them, and they draw the pictures for it, and together we create a book. It started with Kindness Kangaroo, which is why it's Kindness Kangaroo project. So it started with the book Kindness Kangaroo, which I wanted to know what kids thought kindness meant, so that when I write a book for kids, it makes sense to kids. So I went into a kindergarten classroom, interviewed them, got answers about kindness, wrote the book, and then decided, well, why don't I get them to draw the pictures too? So by then I had a bunch of other series in my books in my head, so I just kept going. So it just
awesome.
Became a huge project after that.
So the series I'd like to focus on today is Super Kids Save the World. So this was a 10-book series, or is a 10-book series, that focuses on reducing your ecological footprint and how kids can be superheroes within the environmental sphere. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of creating the series and what's involved within it?
Yeah, so each of the books has a monster, and the monster is making large footprints, large eco footprints, and then the super kids are going to teach the monster how to do better. We didn't want to destroy the monsters because we know that a lot of it is just getting information so you can do better. So I wanted to make sure that was part of it. So again, I go into the classrooms and we have discussions about the environment, and I listen to what their ideas of what's causing the problem, and then I listen to their ideas of what can help solve the problem. And then we put that into a book, which then they draw the pictures for. So the idea is that if the books are written for ages 4 to 8, even though some of the older kids are helping me write the ideas down, because once you're teaching as well, it gives you that extra knowledge, because they always say that when one teaches to learn. So it's just a way for them to sort of extra learn the ideas and learn about footprints and the ecological, the environmental and all that stuff. So the monsters, depending on, like, there's a water monster and a garbage monster and a motor monster. So it's topic wise for specific environmental issues that we then discuss, car emissions or, planting trees or things like that.
So how far are you in creating this series right now?
So it's a 10-book series. I've visited 5 different classrooms now. So I've gotten ideas for 5 of the books. One of the books, The Green Monster, has gone to production. So that means it's gone to the editor. Eventually we'll go to the printer and that one will be complete. There's 2 books that have gone back to the classrooms to get drawings. And then there's books that I'm still writing. And then I do have 2 bookings for January to go into classrooms in January too. So it's moving along. It goes along at a pretty quick pace, just because we want to get the books out within the same school year so that the kids get it in their hands the same year they actually help them make it.
So does each classroom produce 1 book?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'll visit 10 different classrooms, 10 different topics, and some overlap obviously, because the garbage monster will talk about recycling, and the lazy monster will talk about garbage, and the party monster will talk about reducing, plastics and things like that. So there's some overlap, but the idea was that we create monsters so kids can understand in a sort of an analogy way what the problem is, because it's really hard to understand greenhouse effect or something when you're 5. So it's, if it's a monster, now we say, oh, there's a problem because there's a monster. So it's just a way of helping the kids understand, and then the solutions are still viable for what they're living.
Wow. So how does storytelling with children help create environmental change?
I think a lot of it is knowledge. It's giving them the information in a way that they can actually understand it. So, I mean, we can, talk about, the issues with the environment, but if it's not something, like I said, with the analogy, it makes it easier for them to understand, putting it in words where that they can understand, and also having them be part of the process so that we're actually discussing it and helping them understand it. So when we talk about, we want to talk about, cars and things like that, and is there a better way, and see if they actually have that information. And that way too, I can also assess the gaps and say, hey, you know what, they need a bit more information on, climate problems or something like that, because they don't understand what it's about.
What's your ultimate goal or vision with the project?
So with the Kindness Kangaroo project, I want to empower children so that they understand that they can make a difference in the world. Be it through emotional intelligence, which was the first series, the environmental, which is the next, bullies, which is the one after that. So because I listen to the kids, I take their ideas and I use them. They understand how important their thoughts are. They understand that they're good enough to draw pictures to go in a book that's published. And I think in a way that will just make them stronger people in the end. And so our whole society is going to be based on all these kids. So if we help them now become strong and understand some of these issues and problems and find solutions, then they're going to grow up to be those kind of people that can actually make a difference.
Wow. What advice would you give to others who might want to do a similar project?
You definitely have to listen to the kids, even if all 25 of them give you the same answer, because kindergarten classes will tend to just repeat. But it's important that each child feels valued with their answers, or they won't participate and they won't get out of the project what the project really needs. And if you, I usually wear a costume, so I'll wear a kangaroo costume, or I'll wear a superhero cape, or a pirate costume, depending on what books I'm working on. And that just makes it a little bit more approachable, so that kids kind of, they'd rather talk to a giant kangaroo than an adult. So, depending on the age group, again, that you're working with. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of it is they really have really good ideas, and I think sometimes it's just to sit down and listen. And I don't go in with any idea of how the book's going to be written. I have a title and that's about it. And then they start talking and then I create a book because if I find that if I have an idea of what I'd like to write when I go in, I can't get their ideas to fit into my mold, right. Which again is not what the point is. We're not supposed to be fitting into a mold. We're supposed to be letting them create on their own. And so that's really what's important part of it.
What else do you think is needed to really empower kids to become leaders? Within the environmental sphere, and just in their lives too.
I think a lot of it is information. I found that there's a lot of knowledge gaps that, there's a lot of talk about it, but I'm not sure that they understand a lot of the talk. So I think, either putting it into action so they can see it, or giving them analogies so they can understand it. Even when we did the Motor Monster, none of them drive a car. Mm-hmm. So we have to say, well, what about, what if, and we don't want them going to their parents and going, stop idling, you're doing something wrong. We don't want that either. So it's a matter of giving them the information that they can process and then use in their own lives. So it's not about, instead of, going to the store, maybe you could suggest riding a bike, or, you could give ideas because you have the knowledge, but it's not about being bossy and telling everybody what to do. So there is a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, that it's not that you're doing something wrong necessarily, it's just that you don't know any better. And I think that's important because I think they feel like, my mom put a straw in my lunch and now, that's the end of the world. And exactly. You have to make sure that they understand it's not bad, it's just there are better ways. And that with everything, how you feel, it's same when we're doing the bullies. It's not bad if you've done that. It's now you know better and you know not to do it again. And so I think that's a key part of it, is giving them the information that they can process with their little brains and their experiences. They've only had, 5-year-olds have only been on the earth for so long. They can't process things in their experiences that we have. So we have to make sure they're understanding it in the way that they understand it. So they understand a giant monster making a big footprint, and how can we teach him to make his footprint smaller? And some of it is like, well, you spray him with water and he'll shrink, because they understand a smaller footprint means a smaller foot. Right. So then we have to kind of go on and okay, well, what we mean by footprint, so they take things very literally. Right. And so you have to make sure they're actually understanding what you're saying and not so much, these are the words, right? Everybody sort of says, this is the speech, this is the pitch, this is what we say, but are they actually understanding it? Yes, they know not to use straws, but if they go to Tim Hortons and Tim Hortons gives them a straw, then they're confused. But I'm not supposed to use plastic straws, but now I've given one, now what do I do, right? So it has to be explained to them so that they understand, and especially in situations where somebody else is doing that for them, or, giving that to them. that they have to understand that, you know, not everybody knows the rules, it doesn't work for everybody, and if you can do your best in your own home, then you're doing a great job. You know, I think we forget that, you know, they're not little adults, they're just little children, and we just have to teach to them and not to, you know, any specifics.
Yeah, I think these are really important messages for kids, and ones that adults can probably take away too.
I always say that I write the book for the parents, because the kids are the ones that give me the ideas, so apparently they already know. And so we just let the parents read the books out loud so that they also know that the kids know, because, you know, especially when it comes to friendship and helping and things like that, they all automatically know what to do. It's just we don't actually listen a lot of times, or we just assume that they don't. And you know, so when we talk about the environment, they all know they should walk and they shouldn't idle, and you know, they all know these things, and it's just a matter of, you know, addressing it at the time and understanding it at the time, instead of just, you know, well, they don't drive cars, so what's the point talking to them about it, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about yourself or this project that we should know?
There is a number, so there are a very few series that are working on. The environmental one definitely is the one that's big right now. There's an emotional intelligence one that I already did, one on bullies that I'm working on. There'll be another one on virtues after that. So it just keeps going and going. And all the information can be on my website or on Facebook as well. And the books are available on my website, and some eventually will also be on Amazon. So there'll be a lot of places to get the books and really see the kids' drawings. It's what makes the books. You know, I don't have a fancy illustrator drawing these pictures. I have 4-year-olds drawing the pictures, and to me that really makes the book. And then a child can look at that book and say, hey, if they can do it, so can I. Right? So that's what's important to me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in, Sandra. To find more of Sandra's work, you can head to her website or any social media channels at Quite a Character.